Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Aaron Porras, and coming up in today's newscast, Israelis take to the streets in droves as heavy restrictions on bars, restaurants, hotels, pools, and more are finally lifted. The controversial Norwegian Law passes its first reading in the Knesset, and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's speeches get the Israeli Hollywood treatment, so stay tuned to hear a delivery like you've never heard before. Not that Israelis were strictly obeying the guidelines before, but heavy coronavirus restrictions on restaurants and certain places of leisure are gone.
Eateries, cafes, bars, hotels, pools, and more are finally officially opening up to long-awaited customers today. After 2 months shut down over fears of spreading the coronavirus, leading Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is announcing the open doors.
היום בשורה מאוד משמחת. הממשלה מאשרת את פתיחת המסעדות, הפאבים, הברים, הפארקים הגדולים, הבריכות. קודם כל אנחנו רוצים לעזור לכלכלה, לבעלי העסקים, לעצמאים, שמייחלים לרגע הזה. ושנית אנחנו רוצים להקל על החיים שלכם, לאפשר לכם לצאת, להתעבר, לחזור ככל שניתן לשגרה, לשתות כוס קפה, לשתות גם בירה.
Beaches, schools, gyms, and other types of businesses are already opened, and routine life is starting to return. Some 4,500 restaurants are still closed, though, meaning upwards of 70,000 Israelis are still out of work. And most of these closures are due to the remaining coronavirus restrictions. Many restaurant owners are explaining that it would be unprofitable to reopen before allowing 100% service. Under the new health ministry's exit strategy, eateries, bars, and clubs can only open to full capacity if they serve under 100 patrons. Anywhere else with a larger capacity is limited to 85%. Certain social distancing and hygiene guidelines are also still in force. All this in efforts to prevent or slow the second wave of coronavirus infections that many are predicting. In fact, already a somewhat alarming number of teachers, school staff, and students are returning to quarantine after several new infections are reported.
אז קודם כל תעשו חיים. אבל אנחנו גם עוקבים אחרי ההתפתחויות. בהתאם להתפתחות התחלואה אנחנו נערך בהתאם. מקווה שלא נצטרך לשנות.
As of now, the health ministry reports just over 2,000 active coronavirus cases in Israel, with 37 in serious condition. The death toll remains at 281.
Now, it could be seen as a day of celebration with the holiday feel in the air, and not only because of tomorrow's looming Shavuot holiday. No, today is restaurant owners and culinary lovers' time to celebrate. Merav Savir reports.
The streets of Tel Aviv have been filling up quickly over the last few weeks as the country emerges from quarantine. But today, things are starting to feel a lot more like the normal we were once used to.
Today, bars, restaurants, and cafes all over Israel, just like this one, Java and Tel Aviv, are dusting off their tables and chairs and welcoming diners for the first time in over 10 weeks of only having takeaway and delivery.
It didn't take long for hungry diners to return to their favorite spots, and for the smiles to return to the faces of those who work in the industry, even if they're hidden behind masks.
האמת, כיף לראות אנשים, הרבה שולחנות, קצת תנועה, התגעגענו לזה, וזהו, התגעגענו ללקוחות, זה בית קפה שכונתי, ואנחנו מאוד מחוברים עם הלקוחות.
וואי, התרגשות, היינו פה אתמול כל היום, ניקינו עד ממש השעות הקטנות של הלילה. לא ישנתי בלילה מרוב התרגשות.
And people are eager to come back, rushing to book tables at their favorite restaurants and get some fresh air at their usual coffee place.
אני חושבת שהיה נורא חסר ההתאווררות, היציאה, המפגש החברתי, זה דבר שהוא נורא חשוב.
Of course, in this new reality, there are regulations that eateries and bars must follow. Customers will have their temperature checked before sitting down. There must be 1.5 meters between tables, and tables will be set only after the customer takes a seat. And anything non-disposable, like tables, chairs, and salt and pepper shakers, will be disinfected between diners. And there must be antibacterial gel available. As for the number of people allowed, restaurants with a maximum capacity of 100 diners can operate at full capacity. Any restaurant which can fit more than 100 customers can operate at only 85%. But residents of Tel Aviv don't seem to mind and aren't concerned about going out, even with the possibility of a second wave.
זה לא עבר, לא חושבים על זה בכלל, אבל זה כן, אני מרגישה שזה ירד, קצת הבעלה, קצת הדאגה.
As for bars and pubs, for some people like Gili, it may take a bit more time until they're ready to go out and grab a beer.
לא יודעת, אני מפחדת קצת מהאטרף שיהיה בחוץ, אבל אני מאמינה שלאט לאט אני גם לזה אחזור, אבל כן, חלום, זה השאיפה.
Easing restrictions aside, thousands of Israeli businesses are still struggling to keep the lights on. And now Israel's economy is officially in decline for the first time in 20 years. ILTV affiliate and consumer behavior expert Dr. Vili Abraham joins us with more. Now, Vili, the Central Bureau of Statistics is reporting an economic decline of 7.1% in the first quarter of 2020. Is the coronavirus the only reason?
I would say that it's the main reason, because if you look at the impact on GDP, it's down by 4.6%. If you look at private consumption, which is a very significant component, was down by 20.3%. Exports of goods and services also accounts for this shrink, and it's down by 0.5 percentage point. The only increase that we can see is in the consumption of food and household goods, which is up by 5.8%.
All right, well, I want to talk to you now about some small businesses, because the Israeli Treasury Department is offering a new package of assistance to businesses that have closed down. But I understand that this is actually irrelevant, really, to most businesses. Why is that?
I would like to present some facts about the number of businesses that open in Israel every year. So we're talking about 55,000 new businesses that open, with different industries, different sizes and shapes. However, 41,000 of them close. So we're talking about an average of 75%. They close within the first year. Now, the government wants to help businesses, provide unemployment benefits to owners who shut their businesses after operating their business for 18 months. So it means that only 25% of all self-employed might be able to benefit from these, from this new law that might come into effect eventually.
All right, yeah, you just mentioned something of roughly 50,000 businesses that start up every year. What else do we know about the sector that needs help most?
Well, first of all, the sector employs about 33% of all Israelis. So we're talking about 1.2 million Israelis who have lost their jobs and will unfortunately continue losing their jobs. And one of the biggest obstacles that small businesses have is that they don't have the skills to operate their business, especially if we're talking about digital know-how. So in these times where people buy things online and they would like to communicate with a business online, I think that the government needs to invest in training business owners to work with Facebook, Instagram, and other social media platforms. This will be a significant push to those businesses.
All right, well, we can only hope that such incentives or such initiatives will begin. Billy, thank you so much for joining us. But speaking of aid, normally the IDF conducts its battles on the battlefield, but in recent months, it's been preparing to fight an invisible enemy. The Israeli military's research and development arms have dedicated days and nights to developing advanced medical and technological equipment to defeat the coronavirus epidemic. And here now with the details of these outstanding projects is Mika Lifshitz, international media spokesperson for the IDF. Mika, it is an absolute pleasure to have you here. Now, how many projects are being currently operated by the IDF, and how many soldiers are taking part?
So just to take it one step back, we had two main goals. The first one, to maintain our operational reality and to see that we are ready for any threat, to make sure that the borders are protected. The second thing is to see that the military can support with his benefits to the challenges that the state of Israel was facing with. We were facing with three different efforts. The first one is technological one, that hundreds of soldiers from various units were thinking, planning, and manufacturing different structures.
Yeah, we see like ventilators and all sorts of really amazing equipment coming out.
Yes, one unit, the 8-1 unit, the technological unit of the intelligence department, created alongside the Sheba hospital doctors a plan. They took home ventilators that people from in their homes using when they have breathing problems, when they have difficulties of sleeping.
So and not necessarily like the really amazing
ventilators and converted them to real ventilators that the hospitals can use to very severe patients. The other thing is the technological division of the ground forces that did this hackathon, like locked themselves in a room, a virtual room of local initiatives, and creating 15 different technologies solutions for facing the challenges the state of Israel is facing with.
So what are some of the most prominent projects? What are some of the bigger ones that you want to highlight today?
So I said the ventilator machines was one of the most amazing inventions that they have made. The second thing is a remote sensor. It hasn't been posted yet, but it's something that tested your heart rate, your breathing rate, redness in their eyes, different symptoms of the coronavirus to see if you can enter a public place or not. And it must be said, it's all by motivation and local initiatives with shelf products and all open source that others can use as well.
All right, well, first of all, that's amazing. But like, in addition to the R&D, because I'm hearing a lot of development of incredible technologies coming out of the IDF, what has the IDF been doing maybe with the civilian sector as well?
Yes, so a different effort that 18,000 soldiers has been deployed all over Israel, ground forces and the home front command soldiers that actually did various missions. The first thing that the task that they have dealt with was hotels that has been converted to deal with mildly patients that won't be, that the hospitals won't be overloaded. They gave food and warm meals to different populations. More than 2 million warm meals have been delivered to different homes, Bedouin, Muslims, Jewish, all over the country, delivered medicine, helped the police forces in various missions to help the population of Israel.
Oh my gosh. So, all right, finally, you know, COVID is hopefully on its way out, but, you know, what is the IDF's next steps, especially with preparation for a potential second wave?
Yeah. So 90 people from the intelligence department has been declared as a task force for maybe next wave to see how they can implicate lessons learned from this wave and to see how they can help the municipal authorities and the government to see how we can help in this special task force to be ready or more ready to the second wave.
Well, I love hearing about all of these initiatives. They sound amazing. It's perfect example of Israel as a startup nation. Mika, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you very much.
All right, and now today in Israeli politics, a landmark vote taking center stage in the Knesset. The so-called Norwegian Law is advancing to its second reading, and the controversial expanded Norwegian Law is returning to the agenda after originally being postponed last week. The bill has passed its first reading today.
הרבה מאוד מילים נשפכו, חלקן מדויקות יותר, חלקן מדויקות פחות, על החוק הנורווגי בניסוחו הראשון, בניסוחו החדש. בכל אופן נראה לי שברור שככל שהזמן עובר אנחנו מבינים שהחוק הזה יש לו תכלית אחת מהותית, והיא לחזק את משכן הכנסת.
Now, it's named after a similar law in Norway, and if passed, it will let ministers within the coalition keep their ministerial positions, but while handing over their Knesset seat to the next in line. This would cause the number of people in the government to grow, though. And one issue attached to it passing, though, is that the Israeli Basic Law, kind of like the United States Constitution, limits the size of the government to 120 seats. So, the High Court is staunchly against the bill. Critics are also speaking out against the cost, saying that the already massive new government would have to shell out an additional 1.5 million shekels for each and every newly promoted legislator. In other news, Jews around the world are preparing to celebrate this weekend as the Shavuot holiday begins Thursday night. So make room in your fridge because this holiday is especially delicious. Tracy Alexander reports.
Cheese, cream, yogurt. Israelis are stocking up on dairy products ahead of the Jewish holiday of Shavuot. The tradition celebrates the completion of 7 weeks since Passover and coincides with the date that Jews believe God handed down the Torah at Mount Sinai to Moses and the Jewish people, more than 3,300 years ago. In Israel, kibbutzim around the country come alive. Since arriving in the Holy Land at the beginning of the 20th century, Jews living in these communities have marked the day with festive celebrations, dressed in white and celebrating nature's harvest. That's because it was the beginning of summer when the chalutzim, or Jewish pioneers, arrived in Israel and began to rebuild their homeland. And at that time, the harvest was in full swing. So for them, the custom has taken on a new meaning. New babies are celebrated along with the fresh crops, but these images are unique to these communities in Israel. Across the rest of the country, feasting on dairy products like cheesecake, for example, is just one of the ways the holy day is marked, seeing demand for milky treats skyrocketing before the festival in recent years. Those who observe the holiday will also stay up all night reading the Torah and hearing the Ten Commandments read, as part of renewing a Jew's commitment to God.
So as the Jewish world prepares to celebrate Shavuot tomorrow, a number of questions arise. What does the holiday mean? What are the different customs and traditions associated with it? And does everyone really need to eat dairy foods? What if you're lactose intolerant? To answer all these questions and more, we are joined by Tel Aviv Rabbi Ariel Constantine. Rabbi, thank you so much for being with us. Now, what are the reasons that we celebrate Shavuot?
Well, there are a number of reasons why we celebrate. First of all, there's the historical reason why we left Egypt 49 days after we left. We ended up in at Mount Sinai, and there we received the Ten Commandments and later on the Torah. So we celebrate the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai. And later when we got into Israel, we also celebrate the wheat harvest, and we bring what's called bikurim, the first fruits what we used to bring to the temple. That was in Jerusalem, and that is a way of us to be able to appreciate the God's gifts. Shavuot, I think, in general, is a holiday of appreciation, where we don't want to take our gifts and our blessings in life for granted, but we want to say thank you and appreciate God's help for everything that he does for us, from the harvest to our homes to everything that we have every single day. We want to stop a moment and say thank you. Thank you for the spiritual gifts, thank you for the physical gifts, and share that appreciation.
So what does the name Shavuot mean exactly?
Shavuot actually means weeks, and we're counting weeks. We've been counting since Passover, and when we got our physical freedom, our national independence day as a Jewish people when we left Egypt, counting 7 weeks until we reach Shavuot. In fact, Shavuot is the only holiday that doesn't have an exact date in the Torah. It is a consequence of counting these 7 weeks that we've been counting that concludes on Thursday evening, Friday.
All right, and then one of the famous traditions that I actually mentioned is associated with the holiday is eating dairy. Why is that?
So there are two reasons. One is that when we were at Sinai, we weren't exactly sure. Meat process is a very complicated process to make kosher, the process of slaughtering the cow and preparing it and salting, soaking, and checking, etc. So we weren't sure what to do. We said better we eat dairy and we receive the laws later. But there's another rule, another concept as well. There's a verse that says, Dvash v'chalav tachat loshonecha, that the Torah should be sweet like honey and milk underneath our tongue. So we want to accept the Torah with sweetness. We want to accept the land of Israel with great sweetness. And the sweetness of the dairy gives us that connection both to the land and to our tradition.
Now, most importantly, I think, how are we supposed to celebrate this holiday tomorrow while maintaining the health ministry's guidelines for coronavirus?
It's a good question. So we actually had a Zoom program online yesterday of Torah studies. There's a tradition to study Torah all night long. That's to fix a problem in the past where the Ten Commandments was about to happen. Moses told everyone, get up bright and early. And what did we do? We slept in. We hit the snooze.
Rabbi, thank you so much for joining us, and happy holidays.
Happy holidays to all of you.
All right, now, a few decades ago, a small boy who, growing up in a poor family, made a promise to himself that when he grows up, he'll make sure no one goes hungry. Lofty dreams for a child. But this boy is now fulfilling this promise, founding the Yad Ezra V'Shulamit organization to address the needs of impoverished families. In fact, they distribute over 3,000 food baskets each and every week, and 15,000 more during holiday seasons. And Shalom Zidel, development officer for Yad Ezra V'Shulamit, is here with me now to talk about their incredible work. Thank you so much for being with us. Now, tell me some of the details about your organization and what you do.
Well, what you're saying is, Aaron, is absolutely right. I want to maybe update you in terms of the numbers, because they sound large, but they're even larger because of what's happening with Corona. Our weekly food baskets have gone from 3,000 to 4,500 a week. So we have what's called the old poor, which unfortunately still exists, but it gotten worse, and the new poor. I mean, there's more than 1 million.
Could you maybe expand on that, the old and the new poor?
Well, again, unfortunately, there is some built-in poverty in this country. There's roughly 800,000 children that are under the poverty line every day. Even though Israel is a startup nation, it's somehow left a percentage of our population behind, Aaron. So we're there every week for them. Because of what's happening with Corona, as you know, there's more than 1 million people who are unemployed today. Yeah. Hopefully that's coming down. But our packages have come up. Our weekly packages are around now up to 4,500 a week. That's 40% more than 2 months ago.
Wow. All right. Now, I understand that you have actually special children's centers as well, one in Bat Yam, south of Tel Aviv, and one in Jerusalem. What kind of services are there? There are more intensive services for children who are really from broken families or single-parent families. We actually they come to us 5 days a week from after school, roughly from 1 o'clock till 5 or 6. We not only feed them a hot lunch, we provide homework facilities for them. We have animators, we have psychologists. We really try to do a whole holistic approach with these kids, both in Yerushalayim and in Bat Yam. And in what ways are you maybe pairing with the government with these initiatives? The government, in terms of money, does not provide us too much, honestly. Maybe 2 or 3% of our budget, if that. Wow. Not much more. We do rely on Israelis, but 80% of our budget are from Israelis ourselves. The other 20% comes from the rest of the world. And however, with Corona now, we were honestly integral partners with the IDF. I mean, we work with the Home Front Command to give out these thousands of baskets. We were deemed to be an essential service by the state. All right, now you talked a little bit about the old and the new poor and some of the services that you're doing here, which are absolutely incredible. People from home, how can they help? How can they do their part? Well, we do have a volunteer network, obviously. We serve 47 cities across Israel. You know, Yerushalayim, Bat Yam are the major ones, but we're all in Tzfat, we're all over the country, in development towns from north to south, everywhere. So there are hundreds of volunteers in these cities. If you can go at our site, which is yadisra.net, there are volunteers available. We have warehouses in Yerushalayim and in Elifelet, which is near Tzfat. And of course, I mean, money is something that we need. Like I said, the government helps us in other ways, but not financially. And we do need your financial support. Well, it's incredible work that you guys are doing. And I urge everybody watching at home to maybe check out the website, look at the details, and see what you can do. Shalom, thank you so much. Chag Sameach. Chag Sameach to you. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. Thank you. And now we turn to a very special coronavirus message from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, but you've never heard the Israeli leader's words quite like this. Tracy Alexander has the details.
אהבה זה ריחוק, ריחוק מבני המשפחה. אהבה זה ריחוק, ריחוק מכל מה ששלך.
Mashups of sound bites from a country's leader doesn't have to be cruel. It can be done affectionately just to make the public laugh. And as coronavirus weighs heavy on the population, some are trying to find some humour in a difficult situation, using speeches by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
אני רואה משפחות, בני משפחה, יושבים על כורסה אחת, כמעט אחד על השני. זה לא משחק ילדים, זה חיים ומוות.
Lior Ashkenazi and Daniel Solomon are two prominent Israeli artists, and they've made this song, composed entirely of COVID-19 addresses by the Premier. The song's title makes fun of the required 2 meters of personal space between people during the pandemic, called Distancing is Love, referring to Netanyahu's March 17 speech when the world was only just recognizing the extent of the global threat.
היום אני יכול להגיד, אהבה זה ריחוק.
Ashkenazi is calling the new song a coronavirus graduation party as restrictions now ease. While Israeli humour is laced with cynicism, Ashkenazi assures the public that this song is meant in jest.
אני שומע אתכם. אתם מכירים את האמרה. אני רואה את המצוקה. אהבה זה ריחוק, ריחוק זאת אהבה.
All right, let's take a look at the weather forecast now. Tonight, we can expect more clear and comfortable weather with an average low of about 64 Fahrenheit or 18 degrees Celsius. Then tomorrow, just in time for Shavuot, we should have partly cloudy skies and warm highs of around 83 degrees Fahrenheit or 28 Celsius. And finally, over the weekend, you can expect mostly sunny skies overhead, but a drop in temperatures to an average of 80 degrees Fahrenheit or 27 degrees Celsius. And now, before we go, let's take a look at what's going viral in Israel. Wow. I don't know if you can read the caption, but it says professional, and I could not agree more. There's some serious skills. All right, but that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.49 shekels to the American dollar. For more news from ILTV, please like ILTV on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube and Roku TV pages. I'm Aaron Porras. Thank you so much for watching.